Hello and welcome to Amjambo Time, the show that highlights the voices, stories, and the journeys of new Mainers and their contributions to our communities. It's a farming season in Maine. Fields are alive with activity, and the farmers are working hard from dawn to dusk. Across different cities in Maine, residents are heading to farmers markets to shop for fresh, local produce. So there is no better moment to bring you this special episode featuring Muhidin Libah, Director of the Somali Bantu Community Association of Maine and the Liberation Farms. Muhidin was born in southern Somalia, spent part of his youth in refugee camps in Kenya and resettled in the US in 2004. He has co-founded several community organizations across the country, including the Somali Bantu Community Association of Syracuse and the Middle Juba Relief and Sustainability Organization. He is also a family man who just celebrated the birth of his 10th child. Today, as a director of both the Somali Bantu Community Association and the Liberation Farms, Muhidin supports immigrant and the refugee farmers as they reconnect with the land, grow culturally meaningful food, and build economic independence right here in Maine. In this episode, he shares the challenges and opportunities that farmers face, especially during this demanding season, and explains how farming is not just about food, but about dignity, community, and healing. Stay with us. This is Amjambo Time.
You are listening to Amjambo Time on 90.9 FM, WMPG, Gorham, Portland, radio from the University of Southern Maine.
Yes, my name is Muhidin Libah. I am the director for Somali Bantu Community Association and Liberation Farm.
Muhidin, we find you here in Wales on a farm which belongs to the Somali Bantu Association. Can you tell us the history about this farm, please?
Yes, in 2014, the Somali Bantus started farming in North Yarmouth on a piece of land. So that piece was a leased land. And for those who doesn't know, a leased land is that there's a limit to what you can do on a leased land. You can't discuss the amendment of the soil, you can't add anything, you can't subtract anything, you just see the soil, you use it the same. So, and there was a lot of interest in the farming program from the community. We were trying to expand and bring in more people, like give access to a lot of people. So we had over 200 farmers interested, and North Yarmouth was only 3 acres. We moved to urban. First we moved to New Gloucester. We put 40 farmers there, and then it wasn't enough. We moved to urban. We put around 78 farmers in there, and then we got another piece in Lewiston. So at some point we were running North Yarmouth, New Gloucester, Lewiston, and urban. All the farmers were like sparse like that, and it wasn't really easy for people who are managing the land because they have to be on every piece of land to see what's going on. And then we decided to think about how do we get a central location? How do we get one place? And we could not get a big enough piece of land to lease. And then we started thinking about the idea of buying a land. And none of us owned a house, none of us owned a property. And we started putting our heads together, how easy can we make this dream come true? And then we started pulling other partner organizations together. This annual celebration called Maine Ag Trade Show in January. So we met on that day, and we started brainstorming how do we bring in partners. We signed memo of understanding, and then of all the partners, Agrarian Trust become an organization that can help us in a short term. There were others, but it was taking a long time for them to help us. So we decided to go with Agrarian Trust, which is a national organization. So between Somali Bantu Community Association and Agrarian Trust, we put our effort together. We campaigned, our fundraising campaign, and we successfully secured this piece of land in 1 year. So that is how the history came about. So by September 2020, we brought our goats in here because our goats did not live in a secure place. They were like from one place to the other. And you know, goats are really like clever animals. They destroy every lease that you put together. So our goats were our first people here, and then we waited for 2021 just to wait, prep the soil and cover crop and all those. 2022 was the first year we started farming here. And when we purchased this land, all these greenhouses were not here. Some of the new buildings we built, like this one, the corn building, is not there, wasn't there, and the barn that where the goats are wasn't there. So there were limited amount of buildings that were existing in this property. Now we built a lot to the point that where the city of Manamath or Wales is saying, oh, we have to come back and appraise the property because it's not the property you guys came to. So there are more buildings than there were. So they are trying to increase our taxes because they said, oh, you guys have significant amount of buildings that you build on the property.
How many farmers do you have so far? How it works? Everyone has, I've seen people working here. Each one has a portion, or can you, how does it work?
There are two different groups of farmers. One group is groups that are learning how to have a viable farm business in America. So there are 45 farmers, and there are 5 groups in each, so 9 groups. So these groups will, these are where the most our resources go because we teach them on the quality of production, we teach them on marketing, we teach them on how to go to farmers markets, and we also give them the resources like materials, boxes and all this. The other group is community gardeners, and these are people who knows how to farm from back home in Somalia. They just want to have an access to a piece of land to grow like fruits and vegetables that they like for their families. So those are 204 farmers as of 2024, plus the 45 farmers that are farming commercially. So the 45 farmers have wholesale accounts that they send their produce into, and then they go to 2 different farmers markets, and we have in-community market where we send our produce to the office where people can get it, those low-income people who doesn't have money to come in and get fresh fruit for donations. So these are the outlets of all the produce that is produced from the commercial groups. The 204 farmers sometimes aggregate, like for example right now, they are part of this corn aggregation. We sell corn to Maine Grains. Maine Grain is a non-profit, it's an organization that does the millet, the corn flour and all this. So we sell them a lot of corn. So if a farmer has more than they can consume, they will send it to us, and then we send it to Maine Grains, and we pay them at the end of the day. But otherwise, the only people who can sell in the aggregate market are the collaborative groups, the 45 farmers. We started with about 45 variety of veggies. Right now, we have 28 different crops. We have spinach, kale, Swiss chard. We have tomato, so big. We have small herbs like cilantro, basil, and all this. We have a lot of different kinds of veggies. So, for example, 2023, we produce over 20,000 pounds of tomatoes, and we send to 3 different places. We send it to Prepple Street, we send it to Maine Marinara Sauce, we send it to Portland Public Schools. So those are the outlets, and they really need a lot of tomatoes. And we try to fulfill their orders by putting a lot of tomato plants into the plant. Our farmers are still way behind in technology farming because the only time we use tractor is the first pass. Like we till the soil and that's it. And then the farmers will come in, they plant, they weed by hand, they harvest by hand. So we did not go to the extent where we can use like corn harvester. We don't use that. We don't use kale harvester. We don't use all those chemicals. Everything, all those technology, everything is done by hand. And what I mean by that is that, number one, we need to start from scratch. We don't want to be jumping steps. Number 2, we need the exercise. People are not exercising in the community, so we need them to come out here and sweat and do the hard work. And it's hard work that our people would like to do, so we don't mind doing hard work. And we are not eager to jump into electricity, to jump into technology. Even when we are doing corn shelling, we use 100 years old machine, corn sheller machine. Even though we can get an electric one, we still depend on that, so that we learn from the hard way, and we have the idea before it's we don't jump to electricity, we don't jump to technology. Yeah. And plus, we don't know the technology, so we don't just jump in it. There's interest from the young. We have a group of young farmers who are farming with us, about 50 farmers, and they have their own program where they have classes of agriculture, they have field trips, and then they have their own plots here. So on Tuesdays, they will be here farming. So they love to take care of the goats, but we make them do all the work first, like plant, water, weed, and then they can visit the goats. So if we send them to the goats first, they will not do the other pieces of work. They love the goats and chickens. So we ask them to do the vegetable work first. You have to weed, you have to plant, there's a project on every day. In the winter, they are doing field trips to the farmers who are using high tunnels, heated greenhouse, to just see the continuation of the production of the veggies. So we have young people, we have middle-aged people, we have elderly people in the program. We are consulting with other Somali Bantu organizations. I'm consulting with one in New York right now, in Syracuse, New York, and there's another one in Buffalo, New York that I'm consulting. So there's another one in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So they really want to do what we are doing right now, and all we can do is consult with them, because we can't be going back and forth. We have a lot of work to do here. So we always do consultation over the phone, and sometimes my dream is to go visit them and just help them out. So yeah, there's a lot of interest in the farming from the Somali Bantu community, and other African communities want to start farming and get a viable farm businesses in the U.S. The climate is, we have 120 days to grow. That's it in the state of Maine. So that is about 4 months. After 4 months, you go back into the house and turn on the heat. In Africa, we used to grow about 8-9 months, but here it's only 120 days for 4 months. And in that 4 months, there are a lot of plants that we can produce. After 4 months, there are ways you can extend the season, like this high tunnel. You have to do a lot of work. You have to irrigate by hand, because everything is frozen. All the wells and everything will be frozen. So you have to bring the water by hand, irrigate them by hand, cover them some nights, because some nights it's gonna go below zero. And when it's below zero and this is not covered, it's gonna die. So you have seen the covering in that other place. So that's how you cover them, with rime, and then you open them. Like when it's sunny day, you have to open, because it's gonna die from the heat too. So you have to take care of it. You have to be on top of it every day. But you can grow all the way to the next spring. This money depends on what part of the program you are. Even those who are in the community gardeners, there are people who are so skilled. They can sell everything that they grow. They can sell their corn to the general public. You bring friends and people, they will pay you. They got fresh corn. You take tomatoes to the people. So it depends on how business person you are. On the collaborative people, there is significant amount of money coming in right now, because we are expanding markets. We are selling everything that they grow. So what happens is that at the end of every month, we cut them a check for whatever they aggregated to the sale. So it depends on how hard work you are, depends on what you have available for sale, depends on whether you are here for harvesting, because if you're not there for harvesting, then your order is not fulfilled. So we harvest on Tuesday morning. People will be here, all of them. We give them a list to harvest, like you do 10 kale, 10 bunches of Swiss chard, 10 bunches of that on a list. So you go out and bring that. So we aggregate all those together and sell it to the accounts that they are buying. So we continue doing that up until the end of the month. At the end of the month, we get the money, we pay them. And the organization charges 15% for all the resources that we use. So that 15% can pay for small things like the tractor gas, like electricity, like something like that, but they can't pay for the employees. So what we are trying to reach is a point where the farm can pay their employees, the farm can pay the farmers really well, so that we don't depend on grants or federal money. But that's a long reach.
Taking care of such a great farm, I think you need experts, and we've seen some. How do you find them, and then how are they paid?
The experts, when it comes, we have our own experts, but our expertise only work in Africa because we don't have the time our expertise need. So we have to hire from the community who are farmers also. So we send and we ask them to apply. So people will be interested in working with us. So people have to like to work with us before they even step into the program. So they apply, they go through vetting, we do interviews, and then we hire them. So those are the expertise we have. And we use different foundation money, and we also have federal grants to pay the employees that work with us. So we also hire people from outside the community. Like, for example, the goats need veterinarian. The vet will be from another community. We don't have a vet in the community. So we depend, for expertise like that, we depend on the general public. For our markets, we depend on the general public. So there are so many things that the community can do to themselves, but most of it we need it from outside help.
We've seen that you have some varieties of, when it comes to corn, a lot from Africa. How do you know to choose those varieties?
The corn?
Yep.
The corn in Africa is like 4 different varieties, and some of them will come as a generic, like the red corn. It's not red when you plant. So during the growing time, it just maybe some generics happen and it turns right. So all we have is yellow corn, a mixture of purple and white, and then white corn. So those are the 3 varieties we have. And bringing each one seed from there will give you a cup, and then a cup will turn into several cups, and that's how we were growing our seed bank. So now every farmer is saving their seed. Like when you are shelling a corn, you know to seed your corn somewhere. And asking for a seed on the planting season is the worst that can happen to you. So people know that they have to save their seed. It's the best one in their houses. And people know to shell what they need to shell. So we have a lot of good seed bank right now.
You guys consider to have your own stock?
We have a farm stand right now. We just started selling our own. So there's a building. So the building, the original owner used to have it for like a mechanic space, but now we are turning it to a farm stand where we sell all of our produce. And then we're going to be doing a commercial kitchen, which means we're going to be doing our own cucumber pickling. We will be doing tomato pasting. So the idea will be fruits and vegetables will be available throughout the year. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. So in the winter, we're going to have for you canned tomatoes. We're going to have for you pickled cucumber. We're going to have for you something to buy from us. And of course, onion and garlic and all those can stay for a long time. Yeah, so we started, we are doing once a month right now, but we're going to increase the days that it's going to be open. And then for the long run, we are trying to do our own cornmeal because the cornmeal we are getting from Maine grains is not the cornmeal our community would like. So we have to start doing our own cornmeal.
Is the Somali Bantu Association considering maybe involving other African communities around?
Yeah. We are trying to give access to anybody who's interested. We had a Congolese farmer with us the last 2 years. He purchased a piece of land over there. So we can help in 2 ways. We can help in fundraising and bringing your name up and support you from behind. Or we can give you an access to a piece of land to farm. So most of the other African communities are in Portland area to the south. So it's going to be 1 hour for them to drive here. So it's not viable for them. But if they would like, all they do is just do a simple application form at the office, and then they can get a piece of land. And we are willing to give them access.
Muhidin, are you yourself, do you have a farming background yourself? Because you really seem to be an expert into this.
Yeah, I started farming when I was 7. African communities, we all the same. Like when you're a young boy, you are after your father. When a young girl is after their mom. So do what your father does. And your father will give you all the small utensils that he's sending away. So if your father is throwing away machete because it is too old, he's going to give it to you. So something like that. So that's how I learned farming. And I used to be farming with me and my brother used to be with my father, and we used to farm. I wasn't able enough to do significant amount of work, but I was a farmer as a young boy. So we spent a lot of time in Kenya. That is give us a pause because in Kenya we were in a refugee camp and we were not farming. But when we came to US, that is when the idea came back. We were like, I'm a 40-year-old, doesn't speak English. Should I go to school, start learning for another 5 years or 6 years? Or should I use my expertise? So that is when the idea of farm business came about. So people can now produce. The organization will help them connect to markets, give them extra expertise on how to best grow a really good quality produce so that they can have their own business, farm business, that they can earn livings and start getting money. And that is where we are at right now.
Can you confirm, of course, based on what you experiencing now, that people from different community across the world, when they come to the US, there is a lot of opportunities where they can retrieve their own business origins inside the US?
Yeah, that is what the US dream is. Like everybody came. If you are a restaurant owner back home in the country, you come here and you start looking a way to start that business. So people are coming here and they are trying to find an opportunity on what they know. So that is how the Mexican restaurants start, how the Indian restaurants start, how the African food businesses start. So people are depending on what they know. We are farmers, and we were farmers back home in Africa. But now we are going back to the roots of farming because that is what we know can easily give us what we wanted. Rather than studying how to learn how to cook right now, it takes another 6 years for me to become a chef. And then I have to look elsewhere. But it's easier for me to start farming, which I have a lot of background of. So yeah, that is the American dream. And that is what every community is doing. Like the Mexicans, the Arabs, the Indians, all these restaurants is like Chipotle, all these are like immigrant-led food businesses.
What about the issues of insect or disease?
That is the trickiest part because we don't use chemicals to spread. So once something like that starts, it's just going to die because we don't use any chemicals. Other farmers spray chemicals to kill the pest, but we don't do that. So the idea for us is just share our food with anybody who wants to share with us. That is the norm we use right now. So luckily we don't get a lot of pests, but when we get, it's going to be a horrible year because we don't use chemicals at all.
Muhidin, we didn't ask you when you came here and when you left Somalia. Can you tell us a little bit before coming here, and maybe tell people how even affected people can, impact the society in which they are?
Yeah, I was born in southern Somalia about in the 70s, and when it was 1991, the country went into civil war, and our people were just farmers. And you know how people are farmers? They are people who are in the bush with animals. They don't know about politics. They don't know why people fight. Our people were just like that. And then we found out that people are fighting over our piece of land. There are people from this end and other people from this end. They're fighting at each other, they're killing each other. And we were like, what's going on? And then when one side won, the other side is asking us to leave the land because a lot of people die for this land. A lot of people were shot. They were all this. They started explaining what happened to them. And we were like, no, we're not part of that. This is our land. We were here forever. Don't leave us alone. No, you either die or leave. And then some people stayed a little bit behind. Some people were killed. Some people started using some tactics because there's a lot of forest over there. People were hiding in the forest. People turned into ghosts. Many people left for Kenya, and that's how we came to Kenya about 1992. And from 1992 to 2002, we were in the Dadaab refugee camps. And then from 2002 to 2004, we were in the Kakuma refugee camps. And then that's how we traveled to US.
So for you, even through grief, one can still impact the society where he is.
Yeah, sometimes you can't be grieving and staying sad because there are a lot of things that a human being can happen to us, but resilience is important. You have to be thinking about the future. You have to be picking up pieces and continuing to survive for tomorrow, not thinking about what happened yesterday. So this is the method we were using. Everybody you see in our community have been through a lot. And when we were doing the interviews with IOM, you could see on the paperwork how, what people went through, and that's how we get to this case. And, but we're not thinking about that unless we are asked, unless somebody wants to find out. Otherwise, we're not thinking about that. We're not trying to remember that. We just continue to survive for tomorrow. And that's how we have been surviving all this time.
You and your community, do you see yourself also, here we see you're doing an amazing job. Do you consider going back and impact those in Somalia that you left?
Yeah, it's tricky, and our message is going to Somalia in a tricky way because we cannot go to Somalia. It's a threat, even with the government, because we are people bringing different idea that people had. So that's a threat to the government. That's a threat to the Al-Qaeda people. So we cannot go to Somalia, period. So what we do is we go to Kenya and meet all the people who are our relatives, all the people who are in the refugee camps. And we even bring people to the refugee camps to meet with them. And then the first question they ask you is, you went to the best country in the world and you're farming. Why is that? And that's when we start explaining what farming is and the way we farm, the way we do business. Farming is a viable business that can be international. And that is what makes America the greatest country in the world, through farming. They produce a lot of things that they import. They export to the world, and they import a lot of things. So our people don't think about that. They think about, when you mention farming, they think about subsistence farming, somebody who just farm for their family and not sell anything. So we start explaining how farming is done. We start explaining how collaborative groups work, how you sell your produce, how you know your customer before you even plant. So those ideas is reaching them, and people are like, whoa, we don't know that. The simple idea of demand, supply, that's a simple concept. When the demand is high, the price is high. When the supply is high, the demand is low, the price is low. So that simple concept is something our people, even those who went to school, do not understand. So we are telling them, we are teaching them those methods. And if the country becomes a good country later in the time, we will be sending ambassadors to the country to consult with those people on how to be really good farmers and how to sell their produce. Because that is what we have been learning, what our farmers have been learning for 10 years.
Amjambo Africa.
When you are an immigrant, one thing that you desperately need is information. When people are reading the newspaper, Amjambo Africa, they can definitely trust that this is coming from the right source.
Do our best to help bridge gaps between communities.
Very important that all voices in our community are heard.
Young people can really benefit from Amjambo Africa.
This paper connects us all with things that are relevant to all of us.
This newspaper made people visible because they can see themselves, through one of those, languages.
Immigrant voices are not only vital to our future, they are part of our history is an opportunity we should embrace.
But Amjambo Africa can just give us a sense of hope when we're reading what's going on back.
As Portland and the state embraces more and more immigration, connecting between not only the immigrant community, but the locals.
J'aime lire Amjambo Africa. Est-ce que vous lisez Amjambo Africa?
Amjambo means word. It's in Swahili. DRC Congo, they use as a greeting, hello or good morning.
I see Amjambo Africa as becoming a real force in the state.
Even now, our farmers do not understand what's happening, even though we are helping them understand, but they still do not grasp the idea.
How proud you are when you see people who went through a lot coming on these farms, for example, and, working hard?
I'm so proud, and I'm very. It's kind of unfortunate that our people stick to the back home mindset. People still group themselves into tribes, into communities, into different kinds of things. Where I would like to see everybody working together, everybody accepting each other. The idea of coexistence is so big to me, but I don't see that in my community, and that is what makes me not less proud, at least, because I wanted to see the idea of coexistence is like, that's what's killing our African communities, because they don't know that you can still exist while I exist. You can still feed yourself while I feed myself. Our people think that if I exist, I'm a threat to what they're going to eat tomorrow, and that is not the way, because everybody who's alive will have something to eat. And that is the idea of coexistence. And it is a little bit less in my community. And I'm working really hard to make sure that, when in your existence, it doesn't kill you, because it's just like through coexistence we can be powerful. And that is a little bit not understood well.
Don't you think that point of view also comes from the trauma that they went through home, where they see neighbors killing each other without no reason?
Yeah, that is what's bringing the idea of coexistence. You don't have to kill your friend. You don't have to kill your neighbor to be alive. What good life can you lead when you kill your neighbor? You kill your neighbor who was expert in cow milking. You don't know how to milk a cow. Or you kill your neighbor who is a farmer who was producing food for you, and you can't farm. So that is the way our African countries kill each other. Like you kill your expert, and you don't know what that expert was doing. You kill your farmer, you kill your herdsman, you kill your plumber, you kill your dad, and then you expect to be living a really good life. No way, because you just kill your plumber, and the water system is broke, and you killed your plumber yesterday. How do you survive? How do you get a good quality water? So that is what we are not understanding. So the idea of coexistence is what I'm trying to push the farmers to. Some people will understand, some people will not. Some people are still way back home, and their idea of we can't coexist. And we are seeing that in US too, unfortunately. The last few years we have been seeing division, that, immigrants kill people, which is untrue. And, all those pieces coming back is translating into non-coexistence, and that is where it starts. Trust me, that's where it started in Somalia. There were times people were happy to be fragile, people were happy to kill each other, and now, 30 years later, we realize that that's not the best way. Still, we are killing. Yeah, I think that what we have difficulty is trust. Like nobody trusts us with our own expertise. Like when we started the farming program, nobody was thinking that we can farm. Nobody thought that, you guys farmers? So they don't ask what kind of farmers are you. When you say I'm going to be a farmer, they think this big potato harvester machinery, carbine, and they're like, oh no, you can't run those machines. You can't own those big pieces of land. So my message is trust the people, because they know what they're saying they know. And farm is not just the big machinery pieces of land. There are other ways of farming, and this is one of them, because we don't use any machineries and we are producing enough for our community and for the general public.
Thank you so much, Muhidin, for this.
Oh, no problem. Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for coming all the way.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. A big thank you to Muhidin Libah for joining us and sharing his powerful story from Somalia to Maine and from refugee life to farming leadership. As we've heard, this is the busiest season of the year for farmers, so we're grateful Muhidin made the time to talk with us about the challenges, the resilience, and the hope growing out of Maine's fields. Across different cities in Maine, residents are now heading to farmers markets to shop for fresh local produce. It's a season of abundance, connection, and a community. You've been listening to Amjambo Time, produced, edited, and hosted by me, Eloge Ulikaneza. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep listening.
You are listening to Amjambo Time on 90.9 FM, WMPG, Gorham, Portland, radio from the University of Southern Maine.
You have the diamonds in your land, all the wealth in the hands of some groups. Oh, mama land, wipe the tears of your children. Oh, mama land, give the chance your young boys and girls. Stop the lies, oh, stop the violence, oh, we want an Africa